So Marianne Williamson went on Bill Maher's show, and basically what she did here is held a mirror up to Bill Maher's face and said, look, I'm taking the positions and saying the things that you believed and advocated for in 2015. And as you're going to see here, Bill Maher has definitely changed with the times, even though he claims he hasn't. And he's become, I don't want to say way more centrist or moderate, because that almost sounds like I'm putting a positive spin on it. He's become a wave rider of the trends on the internet. So let's watch some of this and we'll break it down as we go.
You know, the American people are not the problem. The sclerotic political and media systems that suppress and thwart the will of the people is the problem. But when you actually just are out there talking to people, people would ask me, what was your experience last time? And it's even more so this time, that the system, the political media industrial complex, is even more corrupt than I feared, and the people are even more wonderful than I hoped.
I don't agree.
Now, to be fair, this is something Bill Maher has always said. He's always been like, the people are stupid, okay? I'm Bill Maher, okay? He's always had this rant, but it gets worse.
Because we can be honest about this and say we appreciate each other for saying what we think our truth is. But I sort of understand why, as a politician, even if you didn't really believe that, you have to say that. You can't start.
No, I don't say things you have to say. I'm not running saying things.
So
I think we have different experiences, that's all.
I'm just saying, I don't think you can ever separate the people from, this government that's thwarting the will. Not in a country like this. Yes, of course, in behind the Iron Curtain, the will of the people was not what the East German government wanted. That's certainly not the case. I think our government is a reflection of the people.
You think this government is a reflection of the people? Bill, that's empirically not true. Empirically not true. What is it, like 70 or 80% of the American people want to raise the minimum wage? We don't get it. What is it, like 60 or 70% want to raise taxes on the wealthy? We don't get it. A majority wants universal health care. We don't get it. You go down the list of the things, money out of politics and the corruption, that's like 80%. We don't get it. Gun reform, something like 90% want to do universal background checks, and we still don't have universal background checks. We haven't gotten it. A government that is a reflection of the people would do all of those policies, because it's very clear that this is what they want. In many instances, even a majority of Republicans come together with independents and Democrats on a lot of these issues. We don't get it. So he's just factually wrong on this. But since he's doing his whole smug, like the people suck routine, he can't help himself, and he's throwing them under the bus, even though in many instances the people are the victims of their own government's corruption. They always know they're voting for the lesser of two evils.
The reason we have the people we have, it's they didn't get there by answering a want ad.
Well,
they got there because people voted for them and their policies, and politicians, yes, tell people bullshit, but the main reason they tell them bullshit, because if they tell them the truth, they'll throw them out of the race.
Okay, so what you need is somebody who doesn't mind being thrown out of the race. Somebody's got to tell the truth. And when you just said you think I let the people off the hook too much, in the way I see it, you let the government off the hook too much. Because if you look at poll after poll, for instance, the majority of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, want universal health care. If you look at the polls, the majority of Americans, including Democrats and Republicans, want tuition-free college and tech school. If you look at the polls, the majority
of course they want free things. I want ice cream, too.
No, those things aren't free.
Bill, do you really think it's an apt comparison to say, here are the basic necessities of life that every other developed country can deliver, and we haven't yet, versus ice cream? What do you want, free ice cream, free toys, a free PlayStation 5? I'm Bill Maher, okay? I think there's a distinction. This reminds me of when Ben Shapiro went after Bernie Sanders, when Bernie said something similar, and he was like, well, I want a free couch. I want a free designer couch. People want a free designer couch. When Bernie was like, people don't even have enough money to go to the doctor. He's like, well, I don't have enough money to get that really nice designer luxury couch. The fact that you think this is a compelling point says so much about you.
What easier statement could you ever make in politics than people want? Yeah, they want. That's not where the rubber meets the road. Yes, they want free health care. What are they willing to sacrifice for it? Are they willing to, why don't we have good health care in this country? It's because they never really learned to tame the corporations.
But that's her point. And that's my point, is that if you represent the will of the people, you take on the corporations, but they're not doing that because the corporations have bought the politicians. That's the whole point. And this idea of like, what are you willing to sacrifice to get these things? There is no sacrifice, Bill. As Bernie pointed out very clearly, if we go to a Medicare for all system, they asked, hey, will your taxes be raised if we go to the system? And Bernie said this, yes. And then they clipped that out of context and just put the yes and said, oh, see, Bernie wants to take more of your money. But the very next sentence was, but What if I told you you spend $8,000 a year right now with a private tax that you pay to a private health insurance company, which is for profit? What if I told you we get rid of the $8,000 that you have to pay, but in taxes you only pay $5,000 or $4,000? What then? So yes, your taxes were raised $4,000, but you're net saving $4,000 overall because you were paying $8,000 to a rapacious, parasitic, for-profit, unnecessary mafia corporation, and now you don't have to. So there is no sacrifice. All we're talking about here is reallocating where our money goes. We spend trillions of dollars on the military-industrial complex endlessly. We give giant corporate subsidies out. How about we don't do that, but what we do is provide the basics for the people? That's the point.
I mean, why don't we have good health care in this country? It's because they never really learned to tame the corporations.
Exactly, my point.
Okay, but who lets that happen?
The government,
people.
the legislators who are...
The people, Bill, are busy trying to pay the bills and keep the lights on and take care of their kids and keep the train on the tracks for their life. That's what the people are busy doing. People things. Normal things. Is it incumbent upon them? I don't think so. The problem is it should have never been this corrupt in the first place. We should have never allowed big money into politics. But now we have this cockamamie situation where the Supreme Court says money equals speech, and so now billionaires and corporations can buy our entire political process, and you're blaming the victims of that.
No, oh, Bill, come on.
Somebody sends Ted Cruz to Washington.
Well, that's Texas, my home state, so I can say it. So,
well,
yes, but the obfuscation, Bill, and the suppression and the thwarting, and I know that. I'm running for office.
Yes,
I'm in the belly of that beast right now, and I know how they manipulate narratives. Absolutely, the left as well. You know, it seems to me that if you have any two Americans, you were talking about the indoctrination before. If you talk about any two Americans just having a conversation, we tend to kind of get down and get real and get authentic as much.
Like us now.
Yeah, you and I would do that.
We're doing it.
Right. Okay, but hold on. And that's one of the values of your programming always for years now. But hold on a moment. My point is that when it comes to our collective public political dialogue, we have been trained to go stupid. We've been trained to do exactly what you said. When it comes to our public conversation, we're indoctrinated and we think in terms of slogans. And we think, and you see it on the left as well as the right. You see it right now with the Democratic Party. This codependent relationship with the DNC. They say Biden is the one. Can we have some independent thought here?
Right.
Can we have maybe some exposure to other candidates? But I think that what I find in my experience is that people hear that and a kind of yearning for a more meaningful public conversation. But there's a lot of obstruction to it. And the media chops the wood and carries the water for the political elite. The mainstream media. Absolutely.
All enabled by the people.
She goes on this brilliant rant, deconstructing his point. And he's like, anyway, have I said the people are stupid? Okay. Oh my God, he's so frustrating. He's so frustrating. All right, we're not done. This continues.
The status quo is unsustainable. Things are going to break one way or the other. They're either going to break in the direction of greater democracy and justice, or they are going to break in the direction of dystopia and authoritarianism. That's why we cannot put against Donald Trump or any of those guys in 2024 someone who does not deliver more for the people. Franklin Roosevelt said that we wouldn't have to worry about a fascist takeover as long as democracy delivered on its promises. Democracy is not delivering on its promises, Bill, and you can't expect people to be okay with that.
It's not delivering on its promises to all the people.
All the people, 20% of Americans live, if you're in the top 20% of the American economy, you're doing pretty well. 20% are like on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. 70% of Americans experience chronic economic anxiety. 1 in 4 Americans live...
Not 70%. That's ridiculous.
That's the latest report.
This is what happened when Crystal was last on Bill Maher's show, and she brought up that the stock market tanked and the government came in and bailed them out. He was like, what are you talking about? That didn't happen. Because he doesn't follow the news as closely as he should since he hosts a political commentary show. And everybody was clowning on him like, you don't remember when that happened? That was kind of a big deal. And Crystal's point was the government rushes in, to save the big banks and to save the stock market, but there is no rushing in to save the 500,000 Americans who go bankrupt because of medical bills every year. And he just didn't know. So she's citing a fact, a well-known fact that was widely reported. He's like, oh no, that's ridiculous. Bill, you're just wrong. You're just disconnected from reality because you're living in your plushy mansion in the hills of Los Angeles.
Surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. 70% of Americans experience chronic economic anxiety. 1 in 4 Americans live...
Not 70%. That's ridiculous.
That's the latest report. 1 in 4...
Report from who? I don't know what that means.
CNBC.
Okay, I believe Well, look, I believe
1 in 4 Americans live with medical debt.
Yes,
half of our
there-
seniors
there-
live on $25,000 and less a year.
there is-
People are rationing insulin in this country.
yes, there is definitely an underclass. It's true. It's amazing that they are somehow able to take as much taxes as they do take and still can't fucking solve that problem. They can't get it from either end. I don't understand that because it's not like they don't take a great deal of taxes. What they do with it is a lot of wasted,
Right,
graft.
that is correct.
I mean, look what the COVID money. I did a long.
We talked about that actually on your show once.
Yeah,
It didn't
well, I
even
did
go
a
to
long
the
piece
people.
on it. Like at least half of that COVID money, and we're talking in the trillions, was
didn't
just
even go
flat
to the
out
people who needed it.
stolen.
They could have just given $60 to every person. It would have
So-
done more for people and to
So
stimulate
yes,
the
there
economy.
is this underclass in this country. I agree. They're like 40% of the country, I think,
Could not absorb
like $1,000
$400
or something like that,
unexpected
yes.
expense. So think of the anxiety that you would feel all the
I
time
agree.
to
No.
live with that. So we need to attack it on the level of cost. That's why we should have universal health care. That's why we should have tuition-free college and tech school. We should have those things which are given to the citizens of every other advanced democracy, including those, like you said, the hybrid economy with capitalism with socialist elements so that you are taking care of
let's
the
not pretend
those
that we don't already have a lot of socialism. 'Cause
Well, we have the police department is basically a socialist.
Social Security?
Yeah, which came from the Socialist Party.
Okay, Medicare.
But it's not Medicare for all.
Unemployment?
It's Medicare. It's not
know.
Medicare for all.
Well,
That's what we-
Obamacare is getting very close to Medicare for
We-
all.
He said Obamacare is getting very close to Medicare for all. Bill, that's so absurd. That's so absurd. Obamacare mandates people to pay a private parasitic mafia middleman in order for them to get health care. That's what Obamacare does. It's not even close to providing universal coverage. Not even close. And even if it did, by the way, we'd still be underperforming relative to other developed countries because we pay like double what they pay and we get worse health outcomes. Like 100 million Americans have medical debt. 500,000 go bankrupt every year from medical debt. And he's acting like, well, I mean, Obamacare is pretty much Medicare. Oh my God, Bill. Oh, what the hell happened to you, man? See, this is what happens when he has online brainworms. He's the only voter in the country who went from Bernie Sanders in 2016 to Amy Klobuchar in 2020. And you can see this is Klobuchar brain right here.
85 million
Yes.
Americans who are underinsured or uninsured. And you have to be really like kind of buffered
there are-
emotionally if you think 85 million people does not matter.
No, I hope I'm not the straw man who thinks 85
No,
million.
I'm not
people-
saying that you are,
Okay.
but I'm just saying when people say, oh, well, that doesn't matter.
No, but I'm also saying that when you just ride around, you just see a country that does not look like it's falling apart.
Bill, where are you spending your time, Bill? I'm guessing you're in like very wealthy parts of LA, right? And when you go to like a 4-star hotel. What's the top? 4 or 5? I don't know. He goes to like a top level hotel when he goes on the road and does his his stand-up routine. Like, it's the circles you run in, dude. Like you are totally disconnected from the reality of working people.
It matters what I read and what people tell me. It also matters that I just live in this world and I travel a lot and I'm out in the city a lot. And a lot of people are just living their best lives.
Oh my God. This is my anecdotal experience overrides the empirical data.
They're not all fucking rich. It's not all the top 20%. For all its horrible problems, this country still somehow, how we got through the pandemic and didn't go broke, I don't know. I mean, we probably will in the future. Maybe it's the inflation is part of that issue. But I just don't see a country where the people are just seething and unhappy when I'm out. And that has to count.
that doesn't count for anything, Bill. You're surrounded by like rich comedians and rich actors and, wealthy hanger-ons, and you're like going to the wealthy areas and he's like, bro, everything looks great.
I was speaking to teenagers on Skid Row. Do you know how many people are homeless in Los Angeles County on any given night? 70?
If you go to Skid Row, you're going to, okay.
That's my point.
He's laughing at it. She's like, well, what about Skid Row? He's like, well, of course, Skid Row. But why are you acting like that doesn't count, Bill? Why is that like, well, that's just what happens there? Because it's, to some extent, he's gotten comfortable with having this whole other America where people are living like that. And he just thinks that's just the natural order of the world. This is the implication here. And it's like, no, Bill, it most certainly is not the natural order of the world.
So you drive around, but where do you drive around?
Okay.
You don't drive too many miles.
Of course, why would I go to Skid Row?
That's kind of my point. So you don't really, you say, I don't see anybody going through that.
I
That's right,
don't.
you're not driving
Right,
there.
and most
They're
people
more than
don't.
an underclass.
Yes.
There's this invisibilized
Yes.
field of suffering
it's
out
not
there.
more than an underclass. It's an underclass. It's a too large underclass that this country, that it's a scandal that we certainly can't seem to address it.
No. It's not that we can't address it. It's that in order to address it, you have to challenge the corporate bottom line. You either can allow short-term profits for huge corporate entities, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big agricultural companies, chemical companies, big food companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors, to be this corporate aristocracy that get theirs first. You can either have that, or you can have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's not that we can't, Bill. It's that we, at this point in this aberrational chapter of our history, do not care.
I love this woman. She's dropping knowledge on Bill Maher that he hasn't heard since like 2015. I mean, she's absolutely freaking it.
Is bought and sold by that corporate aristocracy.
Right. But government, I mean, from both sides, just like we were just saying, a lot of that money was Biden money that got stolen. They passed out COVID money. Okay, so whether it's Republicans or Democrats, it seems like they both waste a lot of money, take a lot of money they shouldn't have. And corporations obviously live like fat cats too.
Right.
And corporations very often don't pay the taxes that they should.
Yes, very often, Bill.
Yes, and they should not be able to park all that money overseas. It's a traitorous thing to do.
I agree.
But what's the answer? Is to take that, I mean, I'm sympathetic to the idea that we take that money that you're parking in the Bahamas and not paying taxes on, and we give it to the government to fix these problems. But then I don't really trust the government to fix my problems because...
Oh my God. Again, he got conservative pilled at some point. Yeah, I don't trust the government to solve our problems. Well, look, earlier you brought up Social Security. It is a phenomenally successful and popular program because of the way it was set up. So you could just expand that to Social Security for all. And then everybody's doing okay. Everybody's getting a little bit of help. It's basically like a UBI program. But now he's just got this default skepticism of anything vis-a-vis the government. And it seems like he's more skeptical of the government than the corporations, which is not like he used to be. So anyway, we don't need to drag on this. You get the idea. But Marianne, go watch the full podcast. I think Marianne Williamson does a phenomenal job dealing with him. And again, the main takeaway here is you could tell how he's changed over the years, Bill Maher, and you could tell how she basically exposes his elitism now. And she does it casually without even trying. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.